A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to today's edition of The Agenda. My name is Toiwan Jabala, your host. Tonight we are very excited on the show to have two men who have inspired so many people, especially young people, for having started almost from scratch a business empire that is now thriving. And that is the owners of Paragon Investment Holdings, Desmond Amunyela. He's one of the directors of the company, as well as Lazarus Jacobs, his partner in that business. Gentlemen, what an honor to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll start with you, Laz. You know, it's such a beautiful story, but it's not told in full, and I hope the platform tonight will shed more light in the journey that the two of you have walked. How did the two of you meet? I mean, to the best of my knowledge, you are a guy from Grootfontein. You're from Grootfontein. This is from Mondesa. So there's no chance that you must have grown up together as children. If you can reflect on how you met and under what circumstances.
So Des and I met, I think 1986, 87. When I went to Swapo to attend high school was when like you correctly said, I grew up in Grootfontein. So there was no high school for black people in Grootfontein.
Yeah.
So I had the choice of going to Chivarongo or go to Swakopmund. Now my sister used to live in Swakopmund at the time, and I did not like the idea of staying in a hostel. Yeah. So I went to Swakopmund on a December holiday. Yeah. And but I was admitted to go and stay in Chivarongo. I had to go to Chivarongo, Paris Secondary School. And then I liked it so much. So in fact, at December '86, that's when I met Desmond, because I saw these guys playing soccer, because my sister's house was not far from the shops. And I always see these guys every day, man, playing soccer, and I was really craving to play soccer. So I came to this soccer field. His cousin, who's since passed recently, he's the one who came to me and said, "Hey, where are you from?" You know, he was a real bully. I said, "No, I'm from Brooklyn." I said, "No, I mentioned my sister's name. Oh, are you from here? Yeah, come and play with us." And then, and then Des was also on the field, and that's how we struck up a friendship.
Okay. And that friendship then, morphed into the business partnership that we see today. Just how did that come about itself?
I'll mention one part. Des can mention the other. But the one part was, so since we met in '86, we've always maintained a friendship. I finished school before him, and then I came to Windhoek to get a job, and then he also came to Windhoek to finish his high school. I think he went to Augustinium. You can tell the story himself. But we've always maintained a friendship throughout during that year. Okay.
As a matter of fact, it's surprising, Des, that the relationship goes to as far back as 1986. I don't know, for some reason that I thought might be something that you crossed paths in the 90s only. But how then did it come to a point where we said, okay, we played soccer together in Swakopmund. Now we are in Windhoek. Let's continue at a much higher level of collaboration.
Yeah, you thanks, Toys. You must remember that back then, black communities were very small and closely knitted. Like he said, he went to high school before me, and then he finished. So he started working for Watervis.
Okay.
And then I came to high school, Augustinium. But then he was employed, so sometimes things were tough. So when things were tough, I was in school, he had a salary, so I would often go to Ludwighof. That's where he resided, and Zula for a little bit of money. At some point, I actually sold him a camera, which I got from the guys back home. One of the Germans, I don't know, maybe they lost it. So I sold it to him, and he was into art and photography and those things. But it took a long time to pay me. So every other month I would get like $50 or $30.
The agreement was $80. But then I'll pay $20.
but I needed that often from school so I can supplement my needs. So and then the rest really just evolved into what it is today.
Yeah.
There's no particular reason as to, or there was no highlight to say no, that or that happened. It was just that we were together and we needed to be together.
Yeah.
And then when the idea came that we should start a business or start making a living, it was just natural.
But to his credit, Desmond is the one who spotted a business opportunity. Okay. There was this thing called the Afro City Summit. And Desmond heard about it. And he called me one day and said, man, there's all these opportunities that are happening in the country. Yeah. Let's think about establishing a business. And back then I was working for NAMWater. I was a corporate affairs officer there at NAMWater. And I knew a little bit about outdoor advertising and things like that. And he spotted the opportunity. He said, man, I heard these guys are looking for people who can do billboards. And I see you are also doing marketing. Can we do something? And at the time I had a comfort zone. I had a good salary. I was driving a little BMW. and he said something that I never forgot. He said, it's all well to have a salary, but what if you get retrenched tomorrow? Yes. What's going to happen to you? Absolutely. And that triggered me. Because at the time I had a family. I didn't want to be in a situation where I can't serve. And that's how basically the business then the relationship started. Okay.
But on that one, yes. The credit must also go to Martin Shipanga.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what had happened? By then, I think I'd spent some time in Europe. I was a bit globe hopping. But that's much after the school part that we told you. And then when I came back, I heard that Shipax had become the CEO of the city.
Yeah.
So he was like an older brother. His younger brother was my best friend. And then I went to check up on him. Yeah. So when I walked into his office, I found him frustrated, talking to somebody on the phone about being let down on this Afro Summit thing, because he was preparing for Afro Summit, which is all African cities coming to a summit in Windhoek. And coupled to what he has said, in Sweden, I had a lady friend who was working for a company called Telia, and she was in the marketing department. And she was also talking about billboards. So one day I asked her, what are billboards? And she showed me. So then when Shipax was on about his frustrations, I then said to him, no, but we can help you. And that's how I got to Las, knowing that he's full on into this thing. And we actually just went to a makeshift welder in Katutura. Old man
Mr. Biekes.
And then we put him in his car and we drove him to a billboard and said, we want that thing. So by then Shipanga had said, if you can do it, please, hurry up, I'm under pressure. If you need money, I give you upfront. And that's how it took off. And then at some point, a guy called Stanley Gatsao, with some other guy from South Africa, Bongi, who had the marketing side of things, the creative side of things. They were then roped in and they assisted us quite a lot. That's how we built a company called Pamoja Media Rental, which later merged with the sign shop. And from the sign shop, I think we sold it to Alliance Media, the present day Alliance Media. And then we started another one called Eshisha Media Rental. You see that billboard when you get into Ongwediva?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That
there by the select filling station there.
Minister Utoni was the mayor then. And when we put it up and we let it, and it was MTC, it was a big thing. It was praised as an investment to Ongwediva. But also credit must go to him because he's a very foresighted gentleman. He was an incredible human being. He helped us because we didn't know what we were doing much, but with that kind of help, from the Shipangas and the Katsaos and Utonis and many other people.
And we must not forget Mrs. Rosa Nakale. She was the deputy PS at the Ministry of Works then. And then when we put up these billboards, turned out that we put up these billboards illegally.
Too close to the road.
And too close to the road. And we did not know there were these regulations governing these billboards.
That's where I learned the word condonation.
She said, okay, they don't have to remove it, but let's just find a way to condone it.
Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting. Condonation, I've come across the word for the first time in courts when RDP challenged the elections, I think 2009 elections. and the lawyers of the ECN were saying, look, there might have been some small things here, but can we just condone? And I was like, okay.
They stopped using that word.
Yeah. Paragon itself, how did it come about then? Did it grow from a shisha, or is it a separate, something that you started separately?
Yeah, okay. You can
basically, like Des said earlier, so when we did the shisha media rental, then this idea was, let's start diversifying. Let's not just confine ourselves to billboards and outdoor advertising. So that then encouraged us to corporatize, because what we did in the beginning, we realized that a lot of our brothers were hustling, just all of us, like all of us, were hustling from their car boots and little briefcases and so on. At some point, they said, look, let's corporate. It's always nice if we need to portray the image that we want people to know of us, not that we are aspiring. So we shouldn't be in briefcases. Let's have an office, let's have a boardroom, and also let's have a proper company name. So then we went to our auditors, who are still our auditors now, and we're looking for a company to buy, a name to buy for the company. And for some reason, we were impressed with the word Paragon. Until today, I don't know how we came across, but we were looking for a name that is, like they said, something that sounds international. Because our foresight was we're going to be an international company one day, so let's not have a company with necessarily with an indigenous name that just confines us to Namibia. And I think that's how we chose Paragon. Because I was trying to remember how we chose Paragon.
Yeah, you're right. We went to the auditors looking for a company, like you said. And we were quite in a hurry because we had sold then our shares in the other companies with the sign shop. Because we wanted freedom, we wanted to do things, and we had an advantage because he was very high up there in the corporate world. So he was on TV all the time, and he knew enough about the corporate world. But it's always been our thing that you must fake it until you make it.
Yes.
And because he's a marketer, we went down that route. I remember at some point we went to President Pohamba, because that was 2004 when we started the company. And we were just transiting into the Pohamba administration. So the first week of his administration, we went to him just to present that, we are doing business, because we had a history with him as a Secretary General. We once bought him a chair at
the Swapo head office.
Found the old man in a broken chair. So then when he became president, we went to introduce ourselves. So he scolded us because of the name, because of the image was perfectly put together, being marketers. And he thought we are with South Africans. So for that he scolded us, so we had to correct him to say, no, it's actually us. You meant to tell me this is all of you.
He was very surprised.
Very wonderful old man.
I know. He was a very kind man. He is a kind man. I mean, you look at the things that he's doing now with his Mo Ibrahim millions, uplifting communities, building schools there. It's really, really amazing. And he has also detached himself very much from the active politics.
Amazing, just incredible.
Statesman.
He comes from a rare cloth of leadership. People who are true patriots. Selfless dedication to Namibia and Namibians. And it's something you don't find very often.
He comes across as such. Now, still on Paragon, how is the ownership structure now as things stand? Is it strictly the two of you? Do you have international shareholders?
It's fully Namibian. We have surrendered the company long ago to broad ownership in the form of trust, that assist the myriad of things. So the two of us don't have any ownership in the company. We're just we're executive directors. We draw a salary, and we are for the gainful employment that we provide.
And
although we represent the trusts. Yeah.
What is the impact of the company? In what areas are you into right now? You branched out into different industries. In terms of job creation, in terms of the economic impact, in terms of the where you operate in now, what can you tell me about that, Les?
Okay, so before we get to that, it's very important to have this background because our mission has always been, I remember, I don't know if Desmond recalls, one day we were standing in front of Vurman Brock in Swapo.
Yeah.
It was at the time we started the company, and he said, look, let's have a company that's going to outlive us, the way this Vurman Brock family, them are standing here. You know, so that one day our grandchildren can also say, no, our great-grandparents started our company. So that has always been our vision.
Yeah.
Now, and in terms of the industries we are operating in, we are, as you know, Paragon is very diversified.
Yeah.
We are in marketing, we are in advertising, we're in media, we are food production, and so on. So the whole idea is we always look at Paragon as a company that will always seize opportunities wherever we see them. And most importantly, we always think it's very important for Paragon to be in fields where black people do not tread. It wasn't by design, it became like that because if you look at it, when we started outdoor advertising, we were the first black-owned, Namibian black-owned outdoor advertising. We started an advertising agency. Same thing. When we bought the Windhoek Observer newspaper, we were the first black-owned mainstream newspaper in the country. So, and now also what we are doing with travel retail, which Desmond is going to get into, I'm sure. That's why we pride ourselves in conquering frontiers. So we try to go into this, but we are driven by a sense of patriotic duty. That as Namibians, we need to enter into those industries that other people do not necessarily go to or are afraid to go to, because really this is our country, and if Namibians don't take control and ownership of our economy, who will? So, and we are never the smartest people. We always get into those industries and get Namibians who knows a lot in those industries to manage these industries.
Wonderful. You were my bosses at some stage. You're still my bosses.
No, we're not. We're your colleagues.
We're your colleagues.
We're colleagues.
Yeah, for my viewers, I worked for Windhoek Observer 2009, and these were my shareholders.
Colleagues.
My colleagues.
We're still waiting for you to come back so you can take it to the next level.
The next level. Yeah. So in terms of jobs, because we were a lot at Windhoek Observer alone, we were a lot at the time.
You were 32 at the time.
Yeah, probably, yes, exactly. So overall as a group, what is your staff complement?
Right now we are at 225. That is, and before I go further with that, most people do not know how far and wide we are spread.
Yeah.
We operate actively in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and we're busy setting up in Tanzania on the travel retail thing. So all put together, we're about 225 and growing. But we had to scale down here and there as a result of COVID. Yeah, but that's the number on our books now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we go for a quick break and return.
I'm so lost, so loopy over you, baby. Bubba, shoot the shoe. I'm so lost, so loopy over you.
We continue our conversation with Lazarus Jacobs and Desmond Amunyela. Now, again, for me, gentlemen, for you to have come this far is because, I mean, I saw what Lad said earlier about, putting people, capacitating the company by deploying experts in particular areas. But I'm sure also at your level, you wouldn't have been able to be in the position that you are in today if it wasn't for your own skills and expertise and drive. What does who brings what to the table in terms of just this partnership? Les?
So first of all, I think what we bring to the partnership is first of all a common vision. So when we started the company, making a lot of money and driving expensive cars was not the main issue. The main issue was to establish a company, like I said, which will outlive us. I think that from my side, what I bring to the table is the fact that I have easy access to people. As you know, in business is always, it's all about networking. And that helped a lot because, like Des correctly said earlier, I had a public image, corporate, because I was a spokesperson for Namewat and so on. On top of that, I used to do comedy. So whenever I called and I said, can we see Mr. Who? They said, oh, is it Lazarus the funny? So that made it easier to access people. And obviously the relationship then grew from just, from that to now we are a corporate entity now. What are you bringing? And I think my strength is that I understand marketing. I know and understand marketing.
Yeah. What do you think this brings?
This brings, in my opinion, it brings two things. One is the fact that he's relentless in a pursuit of what he believes in. In business, you need that. You need somebody who doesn't give up easily. Let me give you an example. So the last time we were applying for fishing for exploitation rights, there was chaos at the Ministry of Fisheries. And so as a result, the deadline I think at the time was 3 o'clock. By the time we got there around like probably 1 o'clock and we could just not get in. It was total chaos. I'm talking about recently, I'm not talking about right there when we started hustling. And we have put in so much work in securing, to prepare for this tender. Then we realized that unless we get our tender document inside, we're going to lose out. And we have Namibians who depend on us and things, and we wanted to do that. Des actually physically jumped over the counter. He scaled the wall over the counter to make sure that we get this. And on top of that, he can even tell you the story how to get the document up to the 5th floor. But that demonstrates if he believes in something, and nothing will stop him from doing that. And the second thing is, what I appreciate about him is the fact that he's very detailed oriented. I'm a very undetailed, because I've come from an arts background. We are very blasé about certain things. He's very, very detailed, whether he's looking at the figures, whether he's reading a letter, or whether he's listening to what a person is saying in a meeting and so on. That I think that's what he brings to the table.
And so
sorry,
yes,
on the story of the submission, what had happened was, we jumped over and then they kicked us out. But we left the document inside. Now we needed, that's now ground floor reception, fisheries. But we needed that document on the 4th floor, where the registration was being noted, because the place was so full, the whole staircase and everything. So we figured out a way, and we went in the basement after we were kicked out. The document was inside. So we figured out a way to go to the basement, to the minister's access. So there was a lift. So we had to come from the basement, take the document back in the basement with the lift up to the 4th floor, get registered, because there were people who were inside from the main door point of view, but their documents were never accepted because the time had lapsed. But they were in the building. So but it's also just luck and maybe a little bit of having spent a little bit more time on the street than necessary. So
streetwise.
To survive.
Yeah, sure. What is the struggle, broadly speaking now, what is the struggle of black businesses? I mean, in this country, to build a business as a black man coming from the racial background that we had as a country, even when you talk about having submitted your application in that way, that is typically a very black thing. It's not something that you find at Ottawa and list and stuff like that, I'm sure. Just what is the struggle of being a black business person, especially with policy, the background that we've had, and the fact that this space has been dominated by others for a very long time?
Yeah, I think last you can shoot that.
You see that, how is it that being a black entrepreneur, you have a triple threat?
Yeah.
The first threat is that your own people do not believe in you,
yeah,
because we have unfortunately succeeded. Not all black people, I'm not generalizing, I'm just saying most of the time those who matter. For the very simple reason that we have scored our own goals as black people. We started labeling black people, calling black people entrepreneurs and things like that. So, if you make it somehow, it's because you are a thief. That's the one threat. The second threat is the fact that those who own capital do not believe in you.
Yeah.
You know, you come there and they just underestimate you.
Yeah.
So you have to work 3 times as hard as a white business person, because already you are starting with a minus. And I give you an example. Just like to recall this story that when we started the business, we were struggling we were also, we are enterprising through mud and dust. We had to maneuver our way through this whole thing called the corporate world. And we had some challenges with a certain bank. And we were really working hard because we had a vision. And we always felt like our relationship with the manager at this bank, who happened to be a German guy, did not give us the necessary props we needed, or even just the sympathy that we needed.
Yeah.
At some point, this guy actually just told us, man, why do you guys want to be involved in this business thing?
Yeah.
Drop this, just become employees somewhere, man. Why do you want to stress yourself? So the owners of capital don't believe you. And the third thing is basically the struggle that you have sometimes convincing your political leaders that something special was done against us during apartheid, and something special needs to be done for us. And we have given black economic empowerment such a negative connotation to what really, you see, all communities all over the world who have gone through process of subjugation and all that, something special was done for them, whether it's the Jewish people, whether it's the Irish people. You follow what I mean? It's a pity that how many years after independence we still don't have proper legislation about the empowerment of black people. So those are the 3 main, the overarching challenges that you face as a black person, as a black business person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Toys, that plus, in my view, look, there's also one element that a lot of people don't give credence to. There was a reason why the system of apartheid was designed in the way and manner it was designed. And the guys, the Verwoerden, knew that at some point the fiscal apartheid system will disappear because you can't maintain. You cannot dominate the majority. But they designed this system in such a way that scientifically it was left in your mind to remain in perpetuity. And that speaks to even self-love. Like, how much do we love ourselves to love those that looks like us?
And respect ourselves.
And respect ourselves. Because most of us now, when we sort of make it, right? We go to our kith and kind in the squalor conditions in the Katuturas and Montesas. Not necessarily because we care. We go there to show and therefore get validation that I've arrived. Okay? But I want to give you an example. The Old Portugal restaurant belongs to a friend of mine, and I'm there quite a lot. At the corner of Sam Nujoma and Mandela, there's a white guy who's a beggar, right? Amongst others. But you see how white people, when they see him, sometimes they pick him up, they take him for shopping, and you see him the next day well-clad, cleaned up, right? But to us, we hand a dime to our kind. But these guys being, you know, they love themselves enough that anything that's like them who degrades who they are, it becomes their problem.
A collective problem.
So we need, you know, maybe there was no time for us after independence to have developed institutions to push back on this thing, this apartheid thing. Because it remains in our minds, right? And that's why these days, somebody made the example the other day to say, excuse my French, but if you look at the Chinese women and how they are designed by God, they don't have a behind as much as our women would. But they manufacture plastic behinds to sell to our kind. Toys, ask yourself, why? Why would you want to buy from somebody who needs that and you don't need it, and they take the money from you? So I think we need to do a whole lot more in terms of what I call human development. On a basic level, we are not, I don't think we are developed enough for our own good. We are good at adopting other people's social development systems and programs and what have you, but they are leading us somewhere. They are leading us to remain dependent. They are leading us to remain consumers. They are leading us to remain inferior and all those things. Who tells you a sharp nose is more handsome? Me, I'm the most handsome guy you can find. I swear to God, there's nobody more handsome than me. You get? Now, why would they tell us that our women? The other time I was in a social setup and somebody, we had a debate about the definition of a beautiful woman. We went to Google. They defined a Caucasian, sharp-nosed woman. And I don't agree with that. My girlfriend is the most beautiful woman. My daughters are the most beautiful women you can find. So it also starts with that. Finally, let's also give due credence to building institutions with a narrative that speaks to our needs. Like if you take, for example, our desert, there must be something we can do there. We can turn that into a commercial benefit. And let's push back on sending our kids to go study forestry if we don't have a forest, or having a ministry of forestry. We don't have enough as compared to the desert. Let's have a ministry of desert and all other things, because at least we have it in abundance. That's my point.
That's a very good point. You know, let me just say, let me just compliment what Desmond said. When the founding president, when he became president, he said we can grow bananas in the desert. And it became the biggest joke in this country. You know who was perpetuating the joke? White Namibians. Like, what is he talking about? Because this man has traveled the world. He has seen.
It's possible to build bananas in the desert.
You can grow bananas in the desert. That's one. Two, about 3 years ago, I was in Egypt, and I visited Sharm el-Sheikh, and they tell you that there was actually when Hosni Mubarak was in the Egyptian military. I think he was a pilot. He was a flight lieutenant or something. And then he flew over Sharm el-Sheikh. And when he saw this area, he said, man, one day when I become a leader of Egypt, we're going to do something here. And go there. It's a beautiful resort. He has built an entire city or town in the middle of the desert. And what stops us like this? What stops us from saying, are we focusing? The founding president always talks about we have a living desert. But are we really focusing on getting the maximum out of our desert? Yes, we can have timber, the controversial timber that goes to China and so on. But if you look at our forest compared to our desert, our desert is much bigger. So how many resources, intellectually and otherwise, are we investing for future generations to benefit from that desert?
Absolutely. Now, Des, you spoke earlier about the validation. Toivo has made it now, goes back to Okalongo, pushing big machines.
Paragon.
Yeah. One of the, and there's always this talk of black hate, but apart from a few, like yourself, people like Vaino Ipondoka is from my area, where you can go to Des' office and physical space and say, this is my office. A lot of black business people, especially those that got their money maybe through tenders and whatnot, have never really gone on to build something that can live
to
or even outlive them. Do you think then, because again, you spoke earlier about a very, very important point, which is what Steve Biko said, that the most important weapon that you can have against the oppressed is to have essentially their minds. Do you think that that is also part of it, that somehow we are not just, maybe because we never have we never had that background of just having things. Wanuka Momonyo is like, oh, suddenly I have this, I can't believe it. So then you go around the town showing everybody.
Look, in my view, there are a few things. You need to watch materialism or money. Money can be an ill. And I always say this to myself, look, I must never be known as Desmond Amunyela, that guy with a little bit of change. I must be Desmond Amunyela regardless, because the day that I no longer have that money, what am I going to be? I must still remain Desmond Amunyela. So that then brings you back to being a human being and understanding consumerism, materialism, and conspicuous consumption. We, of course, come from a background where there was a deficit. Where a lot of things were denied from us, and we yearn to have. But it's your responsibility now, as part of a society, a building society, that you watch these things, that you don't just run to appear materialistically cladded and more than what you need, because you have a responsibility towards humanity. So if you are in touch with that part of yourself, then it's going to be easy to always know that I have a responsibility not to be the one over-consuming or what's the word? Conspicuous in consumption, whilst your surrounding is the opposite. So it's self-love again. I cannot bring myself to be Gucci and Dior everywhere amidst people who dressed from these other shops. You get so. I don't know whether I'm answering your question.
It's very important, because no community has, all over the world through human history, no community or society has succeeded when you only have a handful who are thriving. Wherever communities succeeded, whether it's a group of people, a race or a tribe, there was always a community aspect to it. We need to uplift each other. Like you say, you don't want to be the guy who's driving a big machine where everybody else is on a donkey. You follow what I mean? So that is very, very important, because that in itself breeds other things. So you're gonna have a situation where people will not even support your business, because it's almost you are rubbing your success
in their faces.
But also, look, we have a responsibility when God gives you an opportunity to be something a little better than others. You have a responsibility to become the champion for good reasons. Now, the names that you mentioned, the likes of Vaino and ourselves, and Vaino is a brother of ours. We know each other very well, and we have these conversations to say, guys, it is not that we are more special than others. It's a responsibility and probably a calling that we must live and provide the right kind of examples for our kind to lift. Otherwise, there has been those examples before, the Tates from Moranyamund. There's a few of them you can point to say, hey, it was worth the opportunity for this gentleman to have helped himself with our natural resources there. But a lot of them, you pity them when you know a lot. So we need to always learn from our mistakes, and we must create the necessary critical mass to uplift our kind. It's not enough, it will never be enough for me to be called to your interview platform because I am Paragon this if my kith and kind are still in the Ombwalia Totinas and Nufia Canceras and that thing, because what makes me different?
Absolutely.
You know, it's like you being on a plane and you are first class and the white man is sitting in the economy and you think you have arrived. You have not arrived because you are on his plane. And he knows that you can never create the plane, so it's fine, go right ahead. So that's that sort of thing. So and I think it's not only us, also you yourself, because you lead a very important institution. And you need to educate. You need to call us to order when you observe something which is inconsistent with what we are talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We go for the last break and return for the last part of the show. We continue the conversation here on the agenda. Last, you spoke about how connections are everything in business. And that brings me to the question
Not
of...
everything, most things.
Most things, yeah. Okay, fine. Does that include political connections?
Yes, I mean, definitely. And one have to look at it from this point of view, that no businessman. The other day I was reading the untold story of Bill Gates. And little told people know that Bill Gates' mother was one of the few women in the 70s who was on a board of a corporate company. I think she was on the board of IBM at the time. And his father was a professor. And even if you look at people like Elon Musk, I mean, I can go on and on. The point I'm trying to make is a lot of people who make it successfully in business must have some kind of network. Doesn't necessarily have to be a wealthy network, but it's all about accessibility. Now, Namibia is a very unique situation. If you look at the size of our economy, 60% of our GDP, if not more, is government.
Yeah.
You understand? So government has got its finger in the economy. That percentage in itself is worrisome, but to answer your question, you will have to have access. Not corruption, access. You have to build a network. If we come with an idea, for example, and say, we want to put up a city between Swakopmund and Walvis Bay, you know, that new beautiful road we have at the back there. It's very important for me and Desmond to say, man, let's go and see the Minister of Local Government. And we should be able to pick up the phone. So when we pick up the phone, we not to go and bribe the minister, but to be able to say, man, I have access to the minister because I'm going to present this thing that will be in the best interest of the country. I know when we talk about connections, once again, it's one of those things that have been totally abused. It's one of those things people say, you just got a tender because you have got connections. And it's that negative connotation that I'm talking about. Yes, but networking is one of the foremost important, even for politicians themselves. They also need connections in order for them to become people, to become effective politicians or to become politicians. If you don't have a network, if you look at the ecosystem of politics and business, it's exactly the same. The principles are always the same.
In that case, I mean, in fact, Laz, still, I had an interview with you last year or so on the Evening Review, and one of the questions that I asked you was about whether you consider yourself a power broker in Swapo. Are you?
What was my answer then?
It remains the same.
My answer remains the same.
Times evolve.
No, my answer remains the same. I don't think I'm a power broker at all for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not in any of the structures of Swapo.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, I do not think that I have a standing that we can, like they say, proverbially shift the needle. I mean, if Lazarus speaks, I don't think that whatever I'm going to say is going to have a direct impact in shifting the needle. But however, what I will do is, I think that the privilege that I have, and it's a privilege and it's an honor, is the fact that throughout our business career and so on, we're able to have access to certain people. And those particular people are able to use some of us as springboards for some of the ideas they might have. So that is, but to be a power broker, I don't think if there's a deadlock and Desmond need to be made something, people are going to listen to me. I don't think I'm a power broker.
And this, you are, at least in the case of Laz, he can say that he's not in the structures. You are in the structures of Swapo in Window East.
Yeah.
How much influence are you going to have at the Swapo Congress this year?
I'm basically a delegate.
He's a delegate. He's going to
Congress. To the Congress. I have a vote there. I've always been. I'm in that peripheral politics for like 18 years, since the youth days. So I don't know how not to be. But I will also not consider myself as a power broker. But politics is a game of you have to have the numerical advantage to play in politics. And that advantage is that numerous is people. I just happen to be a functionary. But I do it for the reasons that I think it is in our interest that we influence the policies we seek to see in enabling us to do business. So I'm not in it for any other reason, whether it being power brokerage or brokering or any other. In fact, most of you don't understand politics, at least from my experience. Politicians are very abusive people. They will, and it looks like they, because you asked me that question once when I was here about linkage to politics, because you mentioned a reference you made to Walenga, that is a Swapo politician. Politicians will only come to you in most cases when they gain from you. And we get carried away by I think the trappings of power that they come with.
But they reciprocate that. I mean, you give them what you are able to offer them in your position, and they return the favor, isn't it? To say, I'm a minister, you know.
If it's in their interest.
I'm yet to come across a politician that comes to you for help and they reciprocate in the same manner. In most cases, they get what they want from you and they want to show that they are not that, and so they shun you. That's politicians for you. But it's a give and take. There's nothing wrong with that, because these are our people. It's our brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers. There's nothing wrong. They chose to be in politics, we choose to be in business. These two things must cooperate. I mean, coexist. So, but the element of politics and business is not good because there's a potential relationship to be abused. Also be careful. That's a narrative being pushed by people who are competing in the commercial space. And they know that to be a competitive advantage. So sometimes they say these things to make it seem like it is wrong. It's always been. It is not the Swapo government or the black government that brought about this relationship. We have found them to be. If you don't have to go very far back in history. There were very few business people who existed in business without them being close to politics.
This very same company, NMH. We all know the history of
exactly.
NMH.
And there's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong. And that's why our leaders have thought it proper to have the kind of institutions to see to it that those relationships aren't abused. I'm not ashamed to have a friend in politics. Not at all.
Or to be in politics.
But I have a responsibility towards myself, to you, and my country. And we should be very careful to always throw these things out and perpetuate the belief that politics and business, it's it's tantamount to corruption or abuse or this and that. It does happen, but in most cases, it's a beautiful thing to have.
I mean, you spoke about policy, but I want to take the question to Laz now. When you talk about influencing policy, I mean, obviously it's a global practice. As a matter of fact, even us in the media, I was talking to my colleagues the other day, and I said, look, elsewhere in the world, there are huge media houses that come out publicly and say, we are supporting the Labour Party in this particular election because they represent what we stand for as a group of media companies or whatever it is. So even in our country, if we were to say, look, there's a Congress of Swapo coming, and there are two options, and we know that there's two guys from both extremes. And we thought, maybe as a media house, that we think that this is the extreme that we want, that we see our country going for prosperity, and therefore we align ourselves with that. There's actually nothing wrong with it. I think when you are open about your intentions. I mean, Washington Post the other time before the Trump-Hillary contest, the editorial board sat and said they weighed both options and they say, we are for this one. And they put it on the front page to say, look, we are for, I think they went for Hillary at the time.
The New York Times did the same thing.
Absolutely. But less than the, I mean, does that, for example, explain, I mean, we know Windhoek Observer, for example, has taken, I don't know, but it has taken clear stances in the past, especially ahead of Swapo congresses. Is it along those line of thinking that
you see, like they said earlier, our stand has always been not our personal interest, but what we think can best represent the country's interest. And also as a paper, and this is what I always say, sometimes without being critical of other media houses, sometimes it's always very good to be honest, especially as media. You see that this particular newspaper supports this candidate B in their editorials, in the angles they take in their stories, but they will not necessarily come out and say we are endorsing candidate B. I think the first time the Observer has ever done that was when we endorsed the current president as the candidate for Swapo, for the Swapo vice presidency at the time. And we took that stand knowing all well what the repercussions of that was going to be, but we believe at the time that there was a correct thing to do. There's a direction. He was saying the things that we want, the direction the country needs to take, and so on. So it was against the background, to answer your question. We say we looked at where is this country, where do we want to go, and I mean and we also have the fact that people know that we are directors of the company, of the newspaper, and we are also Swapo members. So then automatically we'll be called a Swapo newspaper.
In the interest of time, gentlemen, let's touch on the issue that has been in the papers recently. Paragon Aviation, I think is a subsidiary of your company, won a ground handling contract at Hosea Kutako Airport, and there's your predecessors who seem to be fighting. We saw in the court papers, claiming that you do not qualify to handle this kind of job. You have no experience in the field. If you can engage me on that.
No, look, we should have, we as Namibians should have won that contract many, many years ago. I am actually disappointed in myself that we have not given it a shot to have won it back then, for very simple reasons. If you look at the the capacity that Namibia has in that industry is upward 500 people. Former Namibia, South African Airways, Equity Aviation, those by the very same company and by ourselves. There's absolutely no reason why, as a country, we should rely on other people for handling aircrafts. I mean, we fly them. What about handling? So this thing of them saying all these wild things they are saying is nothing but commercial tears. These are people who were beaten fairly and squarely, and I must give them a warning that we are after them. We are chasing them down everywhere else we find them in Africa. We are going to beat them, and they can continue to say we are not ready. And to that I put a challenge. They can lay themselves bare for Namibians to see. We are there. We have, the other day we had an open media day where we had invited everybody to come and see our readiness. So I challenge them to do the same. You will be shocked. They're not to forget that there is the very same company whose equipment were found running away from its stations. Nothing like that has been seen in the world. But nothing is being said. You know why? Because again, going back to this design of apartheid, it is one of those things they knew that we are going to rely on, because these people are submissive. We are the masters. Whatever we say, they believe. They have one guy here from South Africa whose qualification, I believe, is below mine. And he's running the show basically just to oversee. The rest is being done by Namibians. These are not investors, toys. You cannot have people come to you, take your money in the name of investment. I am the best investor for Namibia, whether now local or FDI, foreign direct. Because I can go to international institutions and borrow money and bring that money to Namibia. That's foreign direct investment into Namibia. It doesn't, money does not go with nationality. So let's forget this conversation. We're actually lowering our intelligence to be answering to things like this. We are capable. We beat them fairly in an open and competitive bid. And they've gone everywhere where the law allows them to go. And it gets confirmed. So as for you as a Namibian with interest, please, you are more than happy to come and go to the authorities that are authorized to regulate safety, aviation safety related issues. We have gone through all the audits that there are to prove that we are capable and ready. Including the airlines that we are going to serve.
Absolutely.
So I don't know.
I just want to re-emphasize what they said. It's very important for us to repeat that. The very airlines who are going to be our clients did extensive audits on us. And without mentioning the name, we can mention how many questions one of them had that they had to tick through. And they gave us the go-ahead. So like you said, this is corporate politics. And also is that sometimes people have a certain sense of superiority. Namibians are capable. We fly airplanes. We have engineers who are aircraft engineers who are Namibians. So we can fly aircraft, but we can't handle it.
but also, Toys, quickly, you know enough about Paragon. And we can proudly say this, that there's nothing that has ever come our way which we have fallen short of. Not because it's by luck, it's because that's our intention, to always do the best. And we never go somewhere we don't know what we're doing. We've been working on this thing for the last 4 years. And I am prepared, despite the fact that they are they said to be international, to be rated against them, apple for apple. They will not beat us.
On a light note, let me just tell you something. When we won the Air Namibia in-flight, duty-free, same issues we had.
Ended up making them the most money ever.
It was managed by a South African company at the time. There were articles written, these Namibians, what do they know about in-flight duty-free? We ended up tripling their income for Air Namibia. You follow what we are used. This is about conquering frontiers.
I told you about us operating in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania. We are up against multinationals, huge companies. We beat them there.
Billion-dollar companies.
Billion-dollar companies.
Listed companies.
Right now, we've won a tender with Air Tanzania to do in-flight. We've won bids to set up international duty-free shops at Lusaka International Airport. Come on, it's part time they recognize. It is what it is.
We've been invested since 2003.
Yeah.
So we didn't start yesterday.
We're not upcoming entities. Yeah. Gentlemen, it was an absolute pleasure having both of you on the show tonight.
I agree with you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Sure. That was tonight's show. I hope it has inspired as many of my viewers tonight as it did for me. Thank you for watching.